The New York Racing Association paddock analyst Maggie Wolfendale and trainer Tom Morley, otherwise known as Mr. and Mrs. Morley.
Yes, that's true. I've kept my Wolfendale as my professional name, but he's not too happy about it, but he's going to have to deal with it.
That's kind of a TV thing, though. I get it. You don't want to confuse the viewers too much.
Right.
But, I have to ask you, and congratulations. Obviously, it's only been a couple of months, right?
Yeah, just a little over 1 month.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, was this like a racetrack honeymoon? Because I wasn't paying that much attention, but I would swear that I was watching the pregame show, and Jason and Andy said, no, Maggie's not with us today. She's getting married over in England. And then you were in the paddock like 4 days later.
No, actually, I did take a good couple days off. I was away for like 10 days.
Okay.
And,
all right. Okay.
But yes, we did celebrate it. We went to Ascot for our mini honeymoon.
One day at Royal Ascot for the honeymoon. So yeah, we had a racetrack honeymoon indeed.
Yeah, very good, very good. And Tom, it was a couple of years ago we had you on the show, and you were kind of just breaking in at that point. Now you're kind of a fixture on the New York racing scene. Talk a little bit about your background.
So I'm kind of born and raised into the racing game back at home. My father's always bred and owned horses. My uncle was a very successful trainer in Newmarket. I have cousins who are bloodstock agents, and so it's very much in my blood at home. And that's where the whole grounding started. I started in my uncle's yard when I was very young, working summer holidays, and then I was lucky enough to spend some time with Ed Dunlop and Andrew Balding, prep yearlings for the Lloyd Webbers, which is one of the best yearling prep farms, and owner-breeder operations at home. And then when I graduated from university, I was lucky enough to get onto the Darley Flying Start program.
Oh, nice.
Did that for 2 years, and then went to Newmarket 4 years with Jeremy Nazida as assistant there. And then came out here for what was meant to be 2 years experience before going home and starting training. And pretty much within 6 months of being here, I realized there was a strong chance I wasn't going home. So,
Talk a little bit about the Darley Flying Star. Where did you go for that?
It's the most incredible opportunity, Seth. I mean, Sheikh Mohammed sponsors 12 students a year. They're picked from around the world to go from Ireland to England to North America, then down to Australia, Dubai, and then back to Europe. And you get to work with the leaders in the industry in each country and continent. And that's, you know, I always tell people it affords you 10 years of experience in two. And it's sponsored by him, and it's produced a series of what appear to be young professionals within the industry. So I couldn't recommend it highly enough. If you're thinking about it, apply, because it was the best thing that I did for my career. Definitely.
Yeah, I read about the folks who get plugged into it every year, and it seems like the graduates then move on to prominent places in the industry, so it's doing what it's supposed to do. I have to ask you, though, you've been here now in the United States. When somebody says football, do you think helmets and pads, or do you still think
shin pads and football?
Yeah. Okay, well then you're not totally clued in.
No,
not yet.
He's a true Englishman. He really is.
Maggie, we kind of know your background, obviously, down in Maryland. Your father's a trainer. I got to ask, though, had to be happy news for the family earlier this year. He hit a milestone.
Yes, he did. 1,500 wins, and it was really special because he won it for an owner, Russell Gorley, who is a very good friend. We're all friends. I'm friends with his daughter. You know, it's a good family interaction, and yeah, I was really happy for Dad. He was really happy to get the monkey off his back.
Yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, you get up to the 98, 99, heading to those milestones, and it's always tough to get over the edge. But certainly, again, prominent trainer down on the Maryland circuit, and you were involved, obviously, as you know, a youngster growing up. And talk about how that plays into what you do now, because you're out in the paddock, you're looking at the physicality of the horses, and because he was a claiming trainer, I'm guessing that probably played into it.
Oh, 100%. You know, just him claiming horses and knowing what they looked like before when we claimed them, and then him bringing them along and kind of making them feel good and feel like horses again, because that's what he did. He patched up the old warriors, and that's what he was really successful at. So, yeah, that really helps with me looking at horses from race to race to kind of know what they look like before. Obviously, my notes help, but to know kind of when they're doing their best. And I think that's really what I learned from my dad.
And talk a little bit about, because I know this is true as a handicapper, and I'll handicap a race card for the handicapping show, and a whole card can go by where I have opinions, and maybe some good opinions. But every once in a while, boy, something just jumps off the page at you. And I'm assuming it's the same with physicality, because that's what I really appreciate. You give great opinions on virtually every race, but every once in a while, you really have oh, this guy's really looking good.
Yeah. No, exactly. I love doing that. I mean, I go into races, obviously, you know, kind of looking at the horses that I need to look at. Horses stretching out, horses trying the turf for the first time, coming off layoffs, first-time starters, so on and so forth. But then there's some horses in a race, I mean, like that Ron Moquette horse the other day, just jumped out at me in the paddock. And obviously, I'm going to say it. I'm going to talk about those horses like that.
Yeah, and again, those are the ones that I really appreciate, and I can kind of plug, because I have no clue on the physicality whatsoever, so if I can plug that in a little bit. Your first visit to Saratoga?
Back in 2006, I believe, just as a fan, and fell in love with it, truly.
And Tom, your first visit was as a horseman?
Yeah, as a horseman working for Eddie Cornelius as assistant. So I did two years up here working for Eddie, and then 2 years ago was my first year as a licensed trainer up here.
Compare this a little bit. You guys said you were at Ascot for essentially the honeymoon, but you were at some of the bigger tracks around England as well over the early part of your career. Compare Saratoga to some of the English venues.
I think the closest venue that you could to match them up to would be Goodwood, which is a massive, massive festival at home, but it's slightly more relaxed than Royal Ascot. It's more linen suits and straw hats than it is the top hat and the tails. The quality of the racing, though, is every bit as good as Ascot, and the same as here. You know, it's the kind of very, very serious working holiday atmosphere that we have here as well. So that's the one that, and maybe Deauville in France as well. Very similar sort of race meets.
Yeah, I've got them all on my check-off list.
Yeah,
absolutely. We'll see how that works. All right, let's talk a little bit about. And I think we have a photo. You guys are a team, obviously married, but a team in the mornings too. Tom trains, and Maggie, I know you work some of the horses. Talk a little bit about that. And Tom, I'm sure it's helpful because you want to get advice from the people that are working out the horses in the morning. And Maggie, being plugged in since she was a child, I'm sure she gives some very, very good advice.
Yeah, Maggie's become better and better rider as I've known her, and that's from before we started even dating, and is literally the biggest cog in my riding operation. Gets on horses. Sometimes I put her on horses that she's never sat on, and sometimes that doesn't go very well. But you know, the feedback that Maggie gives me from riding them in the mornings is absolutely vital to me. And we are very much a team. She gets on a lot of the nicer horses, and it's very, very important. You've got to have good feedback from your riders. It's a massive cog in the wheel, and she's very good at what she does there as well as in the afternoon.
And talk about that, Maggie. As an exercise rider, what do you bring to the table? And when you get off the horse, what do you provide to the trainer?
I mean, I grew up riding dressage horses too, and I think that provides you with a good seat and a good knowledge of how horses are supposed to move. And I think that's what trainers that I've worked for have appreciated. And just if I feel something a little bit different with a horse, or think it needs an addition of equipment or something like that, I mean, obviously I'm not afraid to say it, because let's face it, I've worked for my father, one of my good friends, Leah Giamatti, and now my husband. So it's a very good relationship, obviously, in communication, a very clear path of communication that I have with them.
And that's a great point, too. We'll talk about it in the morning when you're riding the horses, and in the afternoon. The fact that you've seen or ridden some of these horses in the morning, you've ridden them before, in the afternoon you've seen them before, that's important, because it's not just what they look like today, it's compared to previous times.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, it's hard for me sometimes to judge in the paddock the horses that I ride every day, because I look at them in a different kind of light. So I kind of know what's going on with them, but I try to be as transparent as possible, and will tell, the betting public, I've been getting on this horse, been working great, so on and so forth, and whatnot. So yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act, him being my husband in the paddock as well, but it does provide great insight on my behalf being out here in the morning.
And in the afternoon, even the ones you aren't related to, though, again, if you've seen them before compared to other times, you can tell, that this horse is a little jumpy, but that's usual for this one.
Exactly. And it really kind of provides a great presentation, just having all that knowledge of the horses and everything. I mean, obviously I can't tell every horse out there who they are. I'm not that good, but most of the bigger horses, the bigger names and everything, I can kind of distinguish.
And for lay people, if lay people are just kind of going out to the paddock up here in Saratoga and looking, what are maybe a couple of things they can look for maybe a horse that's on their toes that day?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say there's a bit of a fine line between a horse who's kind of not focused, kind of nervous, and horses that are just ready to go. They're on it, and just that bowed neck and nicely on the bridle, kind of tugging their connections, their grooms around, or if they're kind of all over the place, head high, a bit nervous, a bit shaky, those are ones you want to stay away from.
Okay, so it's kind of a common sense
Yeah, exactly.
approach.
A person who looks confident, translate that to a horse.
All right. Speaking of confidence, we'll see how Mr. Morley is confident on some runners coming up. Let's get some opinions on some of the horses you have entered. And first up, there's one I'm going to mention, but we need to know where Katana is going to go. Cross-entered in a stake at Presque Isle on Sunday. Also entered an allowance today at Saratoga, the 5th race. We're going to go back and look at the May 23rd maiden breaker for Katana. Debut effort, number 4 Katana wins first time out of the box. Follow-up effort wasn't so good, but A, where's the horse going, here or Presque Isle? And B, what are you expecting?
The debut effort was very impressive. This filly's bred to be a two-turn filly, and I said to the owners I'd be delighted if she finished 3rd, 4th or 5th on debut, because I do think she's jolly nice. Well-bought daughter of Medaglia d'Oro. She's actually a Pennsylvania bred, and so when she was good enough to win going 6 furlongs first time, I was very, very impressed with that. I think we got slightly undone by the ground at Belmont second time, and the first time against winners, she was just much the best in the maiden. She didn't learn that much, and she was in against some nice fillies at Belmont second time. We'd had a good bit of rain earlier in the day. The race stayed on the grass, and she kind of got bogged down a little bit in it. But she did leave here at 7 o'clock this morning. She is going to run at Presque Isle in the stake. She is a scratch out of today's race. And it's a good opportunity for her to pick up some black type. She's a very well-bred filly, and it's a restricted stake against Pennsylvania breds.
All right, so we'll have to watch the simulcast monitors for that one. But you do have a second-time starter in a state-bred maiden special. A little bit later on the card today, the 6th race, Firestar. We're going to go back to the career debut, the only race for this horse so far. Firestar will be the number 4 horse. Runs a good 3rd in here in the career debut. What do you expect from Firestar this afternoon?
That's why I was a little surprised with the filly we've just watched before, because my horses, I do not tune up to win first time. I use it as an educational process for them. I send them over there fit enough to do themselves justice, but that they'll learn and improve from the experience. So this is a very nice debut from this filly. The winner of this maiden, who's trained by Kenny McPeak, came back out a week later and won a stake by 9 lengths. The second is there in against us again today, but I believe that she's a scratch.
Okay.
Rudy's filly. So we step up half a furlong. She's trained tremendously since we got up here. She's a filly that Connor Foley and I bought for Zilla Racing at the sale here last year. She's by a first season sire, Here Comes Ben, and she's a big, strong girl for a 2-year-old. And obviously you always fear Todd's first timers, etc. in these races at Saratoga, but she's got the race under her belt, and I expect to see her run extremely well this afternoon.
All right, a couple others coming up in the next couple of days. Intelligence and Amazing Ann. Intelligence
is a neat horse. He's out of a daughter of Take Charge Lady, and he's by Shakespeare, and I guess the few starts on turf just weren't what he wanted to do. Since he got up to Finger Lakes, he sprinted twice, he ran good seconds, and then he broke his maiden when he started going long. And then he ran an extremely good race in the stake up there to finish 3rd. And he beat horses like Australenka, who we've seen at Belmont is a jolly nice horse. He's come down here. There are 2 obvious races for him. There's the A Other Than that he's in on Monday. And then a little later in the meet, there's the 3-year-old New York bred stake going long as well. It appears a distance of ground is what this horse wants. He's not a fast horse. He does all his running late. And we've had him long enough that I like him. I think he fits extremely well on Monday. A 1 1/8 is going to suit him down to the ground, and so will the race later in the meet as well.
All right, and Amazing Ann?
Amazing Ann's a neat filly. She's Tony Gray's been our longest supporter. He gave me my first horse, my first winner, treble maker. This filly's first full sister was my first Saratoga winner, Scribbling Sarah. And this filly, Amazing Ann's, named after
Sarah Mace.
Exactly.
Scribbling Sarah.
Yeah.
And Amazing Ann's named after Tony's wife, Anne. And she's been she broke her maiden here last year. The family seem to love the grass course here. She's been a touch unlucky this year, to be honest, in the allowance races. 2 back, she ran into an absolute buzzsaw of Todd's, who's a really nice filly, but her debut for the year at Aqueduct was a really solid effort, and last time we just got an unlucky trip. We got stuck down inside with nowhere to run, and she finished terrifically. This is a race for the boys. I put her in here because I'm pretty sure I know what the fillies are going to be like in the fillies race on Thursday, and I wanted to see how we matched up against the boys as well. So we're in here. We'll have a look at how we think we're going to be fit in this race. I'm not averse to running her in both races, to be honest with you. No. She's a filly who takes her racing extremely well. She eats well. She's incredibly sound. She's a very, very sound mentally and physically filly. So there's a chance she may run in both races, but we're certainly not counting ourselves out of running on Monday in the boys' race.
Okay, very good. Good luck on the horses entered over the next few days. And Maggie, before we let you go, just have a few seconds left here, but I wanted to get your opinion because I've asked everybody pretty much over the last couple of months. I was down at Belmont on Belmont Stakes Day. I was kind of standing on the apron next to the gap. And boy, that was insane. What were your thoughts when American Pharoah captured the Triple Crown? The place erupted.
I know. We were standing together actually right where the jockeys weigh in, right there on the finish line, 20 feet away from him, just running into history. And everybody was crying. I mean, everybody. Dave Grennan came up, gave me a big hug. Just everybody was hugging each other. It was just complete joy. And really, we are so thankful for this horse. I think as a whole horse racing community that he's come along now and he's been absolutely brilliant, and not for the fact that he's maybe bringing new fans in, of course that's great, but for the fans that have been in it for a long time, he's been a really welcome entity, and we're so even if he doesn't run here, I'll be excited to watch him throughout the rest of his campaign.
But we've got our fingers crossed that he's coming here, no question about it. All right, we got to wrap things up. Tom, again, good luck not only this weekend but the rest of the meet. We appreciate the visit, and Maggie will be tuning into your thoughts and comments in the paddock for the remainder of the meet. We appreciate your visiting with us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Friday morning. Don't forget the weekend programming continues tomorrow, 9 o'clock, both Saturday and Sunday. Handicapper support, 10 o'clock tomorrow.